This ignorant approach to, broad sweeping crypto's a scam and therefore I'm discounting it is going to cost a lot of people a lot of opportunity, I think. They said Bitcoin and cryptocurrency comes from a place of this sort of seedy underbelly where there's terrorism and drug money and blah, blah, blah. And I said, have you got any cash in your pocket? You can't hand me a dollar or a monetary vehicle that hasn't been touched by, that kind of culture and influence. I blame us. Going down the rabbit holes and getting on crypto Twitter and doing all of those crazy altcoin pump and dumps. We've done a terrible job of explaining what this stuff is and how this stuff works and the impact and the importance that it can have.
Welcome back to this week's episode of the Tapping Into Crypto podcast. As we promised on the back end of last year, we're going to take some time to actually bring on some guests, reflect on what's happening in the broader scheme of things. Because obviously, the crypto landscape, if we saw anything off the back of the ETFs launching in 2024, just seems like a progressive leap forward. Month on month, quarter on quarter, and hopefully year on year. In terms of the landscape for crypto and just the broader adoption and evolution of the industry. So I'm excited today that we're going to step away from talking the usual things. We'll be back again next week talking about price movements and market news and all that jazz. And to be honest, I'm pretty happy to take a week off talking about Donald Trump. But we're going to talk more about some of the fundamentals and how they're evolving under our feet in the industry that a lot of us wouldn't have access to sort of hearing and seeing about. With us today, Trevor Topfer, Executive Director of Blockchain NZ, as well as CEO of Avatars Global. Trev, welcome to the show.
Thanks, mate. Nice to see you, Pav. It's I'll do my best not to direct the conversation to do for the big orange color. It is a bit challenging, right?
I never thought it'd be so difficult. Obviously, you're going to lend your expertise and experience from an NZ lens, New Zealand, but at the same time, I'm sure that you're probably the best person to talk to when it comes to seeing the breadth of how things are evolving, even across NZ compared to Australia, and Australia across into like the US and Europe even. So really keen to dive into some of these topics and get your take on them. Do you feel like, from your perspective, what you're seeing in New Zealand is just as much of a drive from the industry to see regulation as we are seeing in other countries?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a weird industry, right? Most of my career, I've worked in industries where the goal is to avoid any kind of regulation, like skirt under the radar and figure out how to kind of maximize competitive advantage within the sort of scope of the rules. And then I landed in crypto where there's just nothing. And It's like, we need something, right? Because there's just so many bad actors that, we love this industry very, very much. The technology we get kind of caught up in and get welcomed to be dragged down those rabbit holes at any time. Not so much fun at dinner parties, but definitely fun on a podcast.
Yeah. It's not fun at the barbecue, right?
Yeah, you see the eyes roll over. You're in crypto. Oh, I get that.
Yeah, here we go. You got to brace yourself a little bit.
The amount of times Pat looks that I work in marketing just to kind of shut everything down. But the weird thing is, industry wants the regulation because crypto's growing up, right? And so the Wild West days are behind us, or for the most part behind us. And I think industry is just really pushing hard on government and regulators globally, and especially in our region, to just get moving on, give us some frameworks, give us some guidelines so that we can bring in some of these institutions that are interested and that have got enormous amounts of wealth, and we can really accelerate industry growth. So I think it's coming from both sides as well. You'd have to be sleeping under a rock now if you're in a regulatory capacity or a government or official capacity, anything to do with the financial sector, and you weren't aware of what was going on in and around crypto, stable coins, all of these things that are moving very quickly at the moment. So government understands that it's happening. Regulators are keen to kind of move, and industry's definitely behind it. The interesting part of it is finding the balance, right? Like, you've got to be careful what you wish for, Pav. Everybody says
Exactly.
We need to be regulated, we need regulatory clarity, we need legislation in order to compete on in global markets. And then you get them, and you get these frameworks coming down, and then it's debilitating, or it's putting pressure on your business or your growth or your goals. right down to the point where I've seen some businesses have to upend and move jurisdictions because the change
pretty common, right?
can completely undermine what they were set up to do.
Yep.
And so from my point of view, it's about trying to find that middle ground where we can still protect consumers. I mean, from a New Zealand point of view, that's our main goal, is to make sure that consumers are protected first and foremost. If we don't have good consumer protections in place, what are we doing here? It's not a sustainable industry. And our lens is to set New Zealand up as an export country, right? So we see the opportunity for New Zealand not so much in adoption or investment or participation in the industry or having internationals come in and service our market. All of that stuff is and will happen. But the real opportunity, I think, for New Zealand is to move quickly and set the country up as an export nation and try and encourage people to come and domicile and build blockchain technology from New Zealand and export it to the world.
Interesting. Okay. And just to rewind it a bit, like you mentioned there that it's all about protecting the consumers first as well, as a big part of it, or a core tenet there. What do you think is most misunderstood about the space right now that we do need that next level of effort from a legislative perspective to fix?
As sad as it is, the crypto's a scam narrative is still around. It still has traction. It's definitely lost some of its shine. Like, it was a big narrative maybe 12, 18 months ago. And for the entire history of crypto prior to that. So we are starting to see that attitude and that narrative change. But I think, to me, that's the most dangerous one because it comes from a place of ignorance. It doesn't come from a place of knowledge, right? And so this ignorant approach to, broad sweeping crypto's a scam and therefore I'm discounting it is going to cost a lot of people a lot of opportunity, I think, and we're in a world now where house prices are shot for shit, traditional investment models are broken, and the emerging workforce, Gen Z, Gen A, whatever you kind of call them now, are looking for, well, what's my financial pathway? Because real estate and the things that my parents or my grandparents are telling me is not what I'm seeing, and talk about uncertainty and things. And so I think digital assets really opens up an opportunity for those people. And it's no surprise that they're the people that are our adopters, right? Like our core sort of demographic is an under 40 demographic. And it's for good reason. It's because the traditional financial models, they just don't work anymore. They're not really that accessible. And so digital assets is an accessible and rapidly moving market that's shown, depending on what narrative you look at, or what coin or asset you're looking at, they've shown consistent growth over time, despite the volatility and the ups and downs and massive. Some years it drops, some years it doesn't grow, but consistently over time, as a long-term store of value, it's 60% growth. I mean, show me a stock or a share or an FX or even a house that returns those sorts of numbers, and that's why we're seeing a lot of young people coming into the space and seeing it as a real viable option for them to grow wealth, and then therefore that broad sweeping crypto is a scam, which typically comes from the over 40 demographic, right? That old school demographic that probably made their money in those traditional models, see this new model as a scam, and we both know very, very well that it's far from that. And so I think that's probably the most dangerous narrative, and that even exists in the highest halls of government here in New Zealand. So I've had conversations where I've been presenting all the way up to the Deputy Prime Minister, and they're saying crypto's a scam.
Great. What are you going to do about it, right? Like, it's almost like it's ignorance to just ignore it, like you said, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, they said, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency comes from a place of this sort of seedy underbelly where there's terrorism and drug money and blah, blah, blah. And I said, have you got any cash in your pocket?
Exactly.
Let's get it tested and see if there's any cocaine residue on it, right? Like, you can't hand me $1 or a monetary vehicle that hasn't been touched by, that kind of culture and influence. So I think if you're trying to broad sweep this thing into a bucket using that sort of a lens, I think you're missing the point completely, and you're probably going to harm a lot more people than what you're probably trying to do, which is protect people. So yeah, I think that's the real big, broad sweeping problem that we need to overcome. And most roads lead back to that, right? In some way, shape, or form, it's this uncertainty around the long-term viability of cryptocurrency, which just comes from a place of ignorance. If you understand the technology and your eyes are open and you're actually paying attention, you can see the global financial system is currently being restructured on the crypto and blockchain rails. That's just what's happening. If you're not really paying attention to that, you're definitely going to miss that opportunity, which is potentially never see it again.
And that's it. Like, this is not something isolated to just a single country, right? Like, this is a global movement. So how have you sort of seen what's happening in New Zealand and even Australia and the US? Like, how can you sort of compare and contrast, like, how all the different countries are kind of moving right now? Like, it's pretty obvious to say the US are trying to steamroll ahead from what we've seen most recently, but it'd be good to get your take on how you're seeing things play out.
I kind of see two different approaches. There's a top-down and a bottom-up, right? US is very much top-down. They've come out and said, we're going to own it all, we're going to be the Bitcoin nation, we're going to buy all the crypto, we're going to be the crypto capital of the world, and then they're trying to fill it in from there, right? So they're top-down approach, right? They've kind of made this broad sweeping statement, we're open for business and we're crypto friendly now, which was a complete 180 to the previous government and a month earlier. But they had to do that 180, and now they're trying to figure out how to make all of that work. So Genius Act coming out and all of these sort of bills and things that are being passed retrospective to them announcing their kind of global positioning. And then a lot of other jurisdictions, the UAE kind of falls into that boat, Hong Kong, Singapore a little bit as well. But most of the rest of the world is going from the bottom up, and New Zealand definitely falls into that bucket. It's like, okay, what's the first piece of regulation, or what's the first piece of legislation that we need to come up with to create a safe space to do business? And so I kind of think that if you look at where the money's moving to and what jurisdictions seem to be sweeping up the majority of that movement and that market share, it's the top-down approach. And so I'm advocating for stop fucking around, go to market, we'll figure it out, right? We're New Zealand, we're a small country, I can sit in the room with all the key decision makers and make a decision in real time, and there's no reason why we can't be doing that. And if we do take that approach, I think that the outcome for New Zealand could be way bigger than any of us ever really anticipate, and certainly way bigger than the current policy makers understand. I don't think they really grasp the breadth of this thing, right? Like I said, the entire global financial system is being rebuilt on blockchain and crypto rails. And where there's that much movement of the world's capital, there's a huge amount of opportunity for a fast-moving, wealthy country like New Zealand. And if we just sit back and try and do it in a tried and tested, step-by-step kind of fashion, by the time we get to where we need to be, all of that opportunity will have gone somewhere else, and we'll just pick up the scraps. That's kind of my fight that I fight every day, is going in and saying, guys, look, this is not that hard, right? Like, we need a couple of key pieces of regulation and legislation passed. Let's just tell the world that's already in place, or at least signal our intention to put those in place and where we want them to be, and get the ball rolling before a lot of the other jurisdictions in our region.
Do you think the situation is a lot more different, I guess, when a regulator looks at it, in the sense that you've got the technology and the infrastructure, and you've got the development side of it, let's say the ability to innovate, and then you've got this other side, which is more like liberating financial systems. It's more about democratizing access to things that, the average person couldn't normally get access to through the ability of blockchain technology and peer-to-peer networks. Do you feel like because it seems like they don't know where to start, there's that little bit of hesitation on, well, which one do we attack first?
Yeah. Technology is never the problem, right? Technology is always the pioneer. The ability to do this stuff always comes before the ability for us to understand and take advantage of it. That's just a natural evolution of the way the market works. So I don't think that technology poses the issue, and I blame us, right? And by us, I mean the degenerates that kind of spent the last 4 years or 5 years or however long you've been in the market, going down the rabbit holes and getting on crypto Twitter and joining weird fucking NFT collections and doing all of those crazy altcoin pump and dumps and being in our telegrams and all of that stuff. We've done a terrible job of explaining what this stuff is and how this stuff works and the impact and the importance that it can have. And so we've confused the market. And I think that the byproduct of that is that there's a lot of people in positions that we need to influence to move the industry forward. This all seems a bit too hard. Like, as soon as you start talking to me about blockchain, how it works and decentralized ledger technology and all the rest of this stuff, they just go, oh, I don't want to be the one that stands up there and then someone in the media or someone asks me a question, I got no fucking idea how to answer it, and I just look like a goose, right? So there's definitely a overcomplication of the technology and the infrastructure and what we're doing and where to blame for it. So a big part of that work that needs to be done, I think, is take all the bullshit out of it and just simplify it and make it relatable and simple. And I spend most of my time doing that. And so I just talk to them about blockchain being infrastructure, crypto being a use case, and there'll be other use cases of blockchain like supply chain and digital identity and all of these other kind of things that are coming down the pipe. So blockchain is just sort of the infrastructure layer of the new internet, and just think of it like that. And you don't have to really worry about it too much because no one gives a shit about the current infrastructure layer of the internet. No one's talking about HTTPS like it's going out of fashion. Very, very small Reddit threads that give a shit about that. But we all understand how to use the internet, right? And I think that's kind of what the next phase of education and the next phase of adoption looks like, is helping people, declutter the conversation a bit, take all of the jargon and the bullshit and all of the ideology out of it and just talk about it in very simple terms so that, policymakers, politicians, industry leaders, and the average person understands what this is. Again, back to the crypto's a scam. When I don't understand something, it's really easy for me to fall into that. It's a scam anyway, so I'm not even going to bother trying to learn what this is. I think it's an unwillingness to try and seek understanding, right? An unwillingness to go down the rabbit hole. You and I have both been in situations where we've been talking about this stuff to somebody who doesn't know anything about it, and we've seen them go, "Ooh," they've had that moment where they've gone, "Holy shit!" You go, "Welcome aboard, champ." Another red pill taken. But I think that this idea of red pilling kind of the senior levels is really important, and that's a huge part of the next phase of adoption, and allowing them to understand what that means on a broader scale. So how do we utilize this opportunity with existing infrastructures and so the first piece of work we're doing at Blockchain New Zealand this year is around it's almost like a taxonomy thing, what we're calling the classification of digital assets, so that there's a really easy and adoptable framework for policymakers and government and industry to understand. We've sort of broken it down to 2 or 3 key types of tokens and trying to sort of group them into these 2 or 3 types. They're either a yield-bearing token that looks like money, they're a non-yield-bearing payment facility, or they're nothing to do with any of this at all, like a game token or a meme coin or something like that. And so I think with these sort of key classifications in place, it gives everybody something to focus on, right? So we can go, well, that falls into that category that really is a waste of everyone's time, and let them have their fun over in pump.fun and all that sort of shit. Let them do their thing over there, because it's not really that meaningful in the grand scheme of things. But let's focus our attention on these interesting digital investment assets, as we sort of have started calling them.
Yeah.
It might be a crypto, or it might also be a stable coin, or it might be a tokenized, tokenized asset of some kind, right?
Yeah, well, let's dive into that a little bit, because obviously I think we could both agree that over the years, even having to rope learn the industry from scratch, like there's not really been a blueprint standard on how you approach crypto. If you've been at it, say, even for the last 6 to 4 years, let's call it, your understanding of how you perceive where the technology can take us, I feel like it's unfortunately not an uncommon scenario that you change your perspective on like what's actually useful, because a year in crypto feels like it's 5 or 10 years in any other industry, because things are just moving so quickly. And again, where do you sort of see it, we get to that beyond speculation moment? Like a lot of people are pointing towards stable coins as being the actual surviving the litmus test of capital actually staying in the space, but do you sort of see there's 1 or 2 or even 3 ideas of the technology and what it actually opens up and allows for that the world could really benefit from right now?
Yeah, great question. So there's a little bit in there which we can unpack. Yeah. But the TLDR answer is most people won't even know.
That's true, right?
Know that they're fucking on crypto rails, that they're...
And that's how you know.
Their currency. They don't care. They want their cup of coffee, their loaf of bread. They want to, turn $1,000 into $1,500 or whatever it is. And how they do that, like, do you understand what a CHESS certificate means? Do you know the difference between an ETF and a direct holding? Do you need to? I bought some Apple shares on bloody Sharesies, and I log in and I can see it going up. And if I want to get that money out, I can just sell them and get that money out. I don't care what happens in and around all of that. We look at something like Stripe, for example, right? They just move $3.2 trillion a year of value exchange, currency exchange, payments onto stablecoin rails, right? So if you trade on a Shopify store in the US today, you're on stablecoin, whether you know it or not. You're already in the system, you're already using it. And so I think this sort of institutional adoption will be the road to mainstream adoption. I don't think it'll be one red pill at a time, like we thought about in the Utopian world where we were trying to...
That's how everyone would have approached it in the past, right? I feel like you felt like you had to convince the masses, but the way you're sort of spinning it is it's, again, that top-down perspective where you're just forced to adopt it.
It won't matter. And half the time you won't even know. So I think that there's definitely that element to it where mass adoption looks like that to me, right? A company, you look at Stripe. Why did they move $3.2 trillion of payments a year onto stablecoin? Because it saved them 90% cost. Right? It was a 90% cost reduction. Think about that. 90% cost saving to use this vehicle called a stablecoin versus this vehicle you call a fiat note, right? Or fiat currency. So stablecoin on blockchain rails, fiat on Swift rails, I save 90%, which means that there's a whole bunch of people in this old system that are clipping the ticket on the way through, and they've been clipping the ticket for a long time, and the new system...
They've been comfy, hey?
Yeah. And that's where all the disruption and all the problems and all the crypto is a scam narratives are coming from. Those guys aren't going to let go of that gravy train anytime soon, and not without a fight. Now, getting into will it be stable coins? Will it be altcoins? Will it be base cryptos? I don't think we've seen the evolution of cryptocurrency yet where it reaches that level of identification. Let me explain. So I think Bitcoin's an outlier. Bitcoin being a completely decentralized token of fixed supply, I think that's an outlier. I don't know. Sure, there'll probably be others that'll try and adopt the Bitcoin model, and we've seen them, right? But they've never achieved that level of success because Bitcoin has managed to become kind of the gold standard, the underlying kind of base layer of this. And it's a beautiful thing that it has, that we've got this decentralized lack of ownership kind of vehicle that's underpinning the financial market. To me, that makes a lot more sense than the current one, right? If I can scoop up all the world's gold and we still have the gold standard in place and I control the world's financial system, that seems like a fucking broken idea. So I think that Bitcoin becomes the underlying kind of gold standard of the financial system, and everybody will have to own some Bitcoin in some way, shape or form. And then there'll be all of the layer 2s and layer 3s that are built on top of it that will ultimately become the survivors. Now, maybe some of them are in existence already and they'll survive. Maybe there's new ones coming that will be purpose-built for specific use cases that'll do a much better job and make more sense to use. I think stablecoins are an interesting one. I have a very unpopular idea about stablecoins, and it's a little controversial, but I think stablecoins are a means to an end. I think stablecoins de-risk the adoption of cryptocurrency. Like, I'm gonna give you this thing. It's worth $1, and I'm gonna put $1 over here so you can see that there's $1 there. It's kind of this escrow type function. And it adds, and only reason it's there is because you might be skeptical, Pav, that this thing's worth $1, right? Or you might not be willing to take the risk that it might be worth $1 today, but at 50 cents tomorrow, right? And if you look at traditional markets, even back to when sort of we started trading commodities and FX and all those things, volatility was normal in the adoption phase of new investment products. There's pump and dumps, there's manipulations, but then they reach a certain point where that starts to level out, and now we've got FX curves that look like this, we've got commodities curves that look like this, and now we're starting to see the crypto curves flattening out as well. And so I propose, or at least my hypothesis is that we will see an end to stablecoins. but it'll happen in years to come, but they'll become
Yep.
a useless product. They'll be an unnecessary useless product in years to come. But they will definitely serve a purpose in the near future, in the near term, as we all kind of figure out the safest and most effective way to adopt blockchain rails or adopt this blockchain structure and enjoy the benefits of this new technology that's much better than the Swift technology that exists. What I'm excited about is a future where value is built on work and built on development and built on utility, not on trust me bro, which I think the entire fiat system is one giant trust me bro, right?
Yeah.
Like, how does the US print triple the amount of US dollars in supply over the last 10 years, triple the volume of US dollars in the global supply chain, but somehow the US dollar stays flat? Trust me, bro. Like, you can't tell me that's not a trust me, bro. If you pump triple the supply of ETH into circulation, ETH takes a tank, but not the US dollar, because it's one giant trust me, bro. If the US dollar depegs and starts falling, the whole world's economy is going to collapse. So it's this one giant trust me, bro. And I think that the future of value exchange, which includes money, will come from a place where there's real underpinning value that drives that number up, or gives the foundation and security behind that vehicle or that token that we're using to exchange that value. So, and I think that's a much better monetary system for the world.
Yeah. Okay. I've never heard that angle, but I don't mind it. But I want to finish up on a note. Obviously, 2025, even 2024, pretty big year for the markets in terms of getting things over the line. So we talked about ETFs at the start of the show. Talked about Genius Act last year in the US, particularly around stablecoins, which again may be irrelevant in the future. How do you sort of see big tickets for this year, big tickets for 2027, even like big tickets between now and the next 5 years? Do you feel like the next 5 years is a reasonable time horizon that we need to get something sorted by, or do you think this is still maybe a longer burn to get the industry where it needs to be?
It won't take 5 years, no way. Like you said before, a year in crypto is 5 years in any other industry, right?
Yeah. My grey hairs can attest. Yeah.
The only exception to that is probably AI, and the two
are
merging together. I remember I tweeted blockchain plus AI equals utopia, and everybody said blockchain and AI got nothing to do with each other. And now I think that comment on my tweet didn't age well, right? We're starting to see this merging of two foundational and revolutionary technologies that are disrupting almost every aspect of our lives. So that's definitely not going to take 5 years, but it will take forever, or at least until quantum comes along and fucks everything up, and then we've got to figure out what the quantum equivalent of all of this is, right? But for the foreseeable future, it's going to be all blockchain and AI, and where those two technologies meet is going to be where I see the most development. And I don't see them being separate. I see them being very, very much counter-dependent. Of course, it'll be a bell curve, right? There'll be, and I can hear them in your comments. They're not my comments. I won't read them, but you can yell at Pav about me all you like. There'll be the AI purists, the blockchain purists, but the rest of us all meet in the middle of the bell curve. From the blockchain side, I think the next few years looks like global regulatory standards, universal language that we speak, how these assets and products and things are classified around the world, having some kind of unified structure around that, having kind of widely universal rules of the game. So how digital assets are regulated, how exchanges are regulated. Of course, there'll be nuance and difference in every jurisdiction, and that's the free market competing, great, but they have to be interoperable to a large extent, right? Or we don't have a global financial system, right? So if I can't get Swiss franc without having to have US dollars, then everything goes back to US dollars, then the financial system's broken. But I can buy Swiss franc with New Zealand dollars, and that works fine, right? So it's that kind of interoperability that we need to kind of foster, and that's happening. And I think that'll be the next 12 months. And then the next 24 months, we'll start to see real world problems solved, right? So crypto being the financial system, I talk to government and say, crypto is use case number one. Bitcoin was the first successful deployment of blockchain technology, right? So cryptocurrency is the first use case of blockchain technology and it's completely rebuilding the entire global financial system. So let's go to use case number 2, which I think will be digital identity. So I think the next 2 years are going to be all about digital ID.
Yeah, okay.
And then we'll move into things like supply chain, healthcare, all of these other industries where blockchain will become the truth and validation layer, right? In a world where where you can't trust fucking anything that you read or see.
And everything gets leaked.
Blockchain will be the core underlying validation layer for everything, so that we know it's real, right? It'll be our truth-seeking layer of the information stream, and it'll be that layer powered by AI across all of these different use cases that will exponentially grow, and we head towards what Elon Musk has been spending his time talking about a lot lately, which is this utopian future where we don't need to work and we all have an abundance and all of the rest of it. So I think that, I agree with Elon. I think that's where we're going. I think it's going to be a very fucking rough road, and I think there's going to be some casualties along the way. And we're already seeing that, right? Like some of the casualties of the last 3 or 4 years in the crypto space. I mean, you multiply that across most every sector you can name, and you're going to see a bloodbath. Then you add automation, robots, and the need for humans to perform physical functions decreasing. And we've got this perfect storm of disruption. So we have to get through that, and that's not going to be fun. But we will get through that, and on the other side of it, I think we're in a really good place. And I think that's within 10 years. So you talk about, 5 to 10 years. My outlook is for New Zealand, 12 months to get a framework for digital assets in place and to start building blockchain technology that will service the world. So again, back to digital identity. I think every country on earth is going to need a government-issued digital identity. So there's a huge market there. Billions of dollars are going to be made by people building in that space. I think supply chain ultimately ends up being run by blockchain and robotics. So people building in the supply chain space using blockchain tech, going to do the same with healthcare records, universal healthcare records that are interoperable with every healthcare institution around the world. That's coming. That'll be built on blockchain. So there's all of these use cases that I think tell the story of the next 5 to 10 years. And then, 10 years-ish, with the acceleration principles of AI, we should find ourselves in a place where we understand what's real and truthful because of blockchain, and we're able to access and have whatever we need because of AI.
Mate, well said. Yeah, there's a lot there, but you can kind of see how a lot of those fragments, I think we talked about it 2 years ago, it seemed far-fetched, but yeah, having seen things progress the way they have, even towards the start of last year, it doesn't seem unreasonable to see the two worlds really meeting in the middle a bit more, especially when the rest of the world doesn't want to, keep up pace, I guess you could say. That's kind of where the two definitely do intersect with just the urgency in which the technology is evolving. But Trevor, thanks very much for jumping on. If people want to learn more about Blockchain NZ and even follow some of your socials, what are the deets? How can they catch you?
I'm pretty easy to find. I gave up on the being doxed thing about 5 minutes after I've learned what that meant. LinkedIn is typically the best, so Trevor Topfer on LinkedIn or Blockchain New Zealand on LinkedIn. I feel like LinkedIn still has some semblance of a grown-up conversation, and hopefully they fight tooth and nail to keep that on their platform, because I think that's needed in the world, and everything else I group into the other. So I think LinkedIn's the outlier, and I spend most of my time there.
Awesome. Mate, thank you so much for joining today and giving your thoughts and your time, mate. Appreciate it. And we'll probably catch you at some event this year, I'm sure.
I'm sure, mate. Thanks, Pav. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. We'll be back again next week. But be sure to check out the socials for more details on what's to come. Thanks.